I mean, right now we're trying to have the conversation as to what are the types of architects are we looking for? Is an architect an architect? Is an enterprise architect fulfilling the same role, if you will, as a solutions architect? Where do their responsibilities overlap? Where are they mutually exclusive? And we're trying to have that conversation. Clearly, in our model, in Microsoft, we lead with our enterprise strategists to have what we call ESP, or Enterprise Strategy Program, ESP engagements, to go in early with customers, meet with CIOs, meet with various stakeholders within our customer businesses, be able to help craft the strategies, certainly leveraging Microsoft technologies to help transform their businesses, help them become more agile, help them become more responsive organizations. And that's really, for my view, where our enterprise architects are most successful. Help put that foundation and that strategy in place. We're typically a top-tier vendor for a lot of organizations, and they're looking to us to lead. They're looking to us to provide strategic direction. There's already a significant footprint of Microsoft within the enterprise, be it Office and Windows on the client or Windows Server, and a lot of server applications in the background, running the business, if you will, from SQL Server to SharePoint and the like. So they're looking for us to help provide some strategic leadership, knowing that they already own these assets. What's the roadmap for these assets? How can they best make use of these assets? How do they complement, or in some cases overlap, purchases and assets that they're buying? And how can it help the business be more agile and move forward? They're also looking to us to provide guidance on what's our roadmap for these products, and how can we migrate them or shift them to the cloud OS. And that's where our enterprise architects really need to lean in and provide that prescriptive guidance. There to drink, and hopefully we can keep up with them and help keep at their pace. I think that they're already at a transformational pace, and they need us to be at the same pace that they're at, if not faster. And the more likely or the more successful we are at keeping at that pace and driving with them, then the more successful we'll be. In some cases, it depends perhaps on industry. It depends on customer. We're seeing a lot of success, particularly in Asia. I'd say Microsoft does very well. We're having this conversation here in Singapore. Microsoft has a lot of success and relationships, and we do quite well with the government and public sector entities here in Singapore. Another big part of our area is Australia. In Australia, we also do a lot of work with the government and public sectors of Australia, and we're seeing a lot of investment in those particular areas, and trying to understand where Microsoft can really help and shift those businesses and help transform those businesses. We're having a lot of success with our Microsoft Azure platform. We're having a lot of success in seeing customers move to the cloud, a variety of different workloads. Clearly we're there with our infrastructure as a service offerings, but we're also really investing very rapidly in our platform as a service offerings. A lot of the new machine learning capabilities, the big data and the analytics, the HD insights to consume those analytics and present information to help business managers make decisions, make data-driven decisions, which is something we discussed earlier today, something that's very foundational to our strategy and helps customers make best use of their investments in Microsoft technologies. So to answer your question, we're seeing investments as a lot of the mega trends we're seeing in cloud computing, certainly in mobility, being that we're living in what Microsoft, our worldview is, it's a mobile-first, cloud-first world. So a lot of the services, not just on the devices per se, but the services that support those devices. Internet of Things and IoT of everything is really becoming a megatrend that we're seeing here in Singapore. That's very much part of the Smart Nation initiative, is to have a lot of
Any cool examples?
Pardon?
Any cool examples?
Oh, you know, without naming names of particular companies, we have customers who are looking to put sensors and monitors and make smart buildings, if you will. You know, sort of coming up with the V-next of facilities and real estate management to help understand how they can best use the power that a building consumes. Microsoft is working with customers here in Singapore to help identify how to make best use of the electricity bills and the utility bills that can be quite expensive, especially in such a warm tropical climate like Singapore. So to understand how a building needs to be more efficient, either from the elevators through the HVAC facilities, through all the lighting, and being able to sort of present that to a facilities manager to understand how well that building is or isn't performing, because these buildings have their own personas. That's not exact. I mean, that's true, but that's not completely true. And I think there's a pretty good public case that's out there that Microsoft is working with Deloitte, producing a smart building. And actually, it's being built in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. It's called the Edge, and it's a full building persona type of IoT initiative where the building is a living entity and engages with people, knowing when they come in that they're guests of the building, who they may be here to see, helps shepherd them to the appropriate parking spot, will inform the hosts that they've arrived, if you will be able to provide them with an agenda. Maybe it's related to their smartphone, and being able to shepherd them through the building and help them be part of the experience. So that's certainly a pivot that we're seeing. It's on YouTube. There's a whole little an overview, a vignette, if you will, on YouTube, and you'll find it's called The Edge. It's the name of the project. That's a great question. I think the thing that's going to make it valuable, connecting things to the internet or connecting anything to anything, it's only as useful as the data that it provides. And once you start connecting all of, be it an elevator, be it all the things that we are connected with in our lives, or if you were going to stay on the building analogy, it would be an elevator, it would be the lights, it would be the HVAC. The amount of data that it's generating can be overwhelming. So you have to be able to, what's going to make these initiatives smart is really going to be smart architecture, and that's really what's going to make them successful. So it's the application of it. It's understanding what are we realistically measuring here? What's the business value? And so we can eliminate the noise and really focus in on what are those key performance indicators that we have to have as our baseline, so we know whether or not we're exceeding that threshold, and if so, what are the preventative actions we need to take? What are the workflows that need to get fired, and be really smart about it. Otherwise, it's just an influx of data that can be coming at you, and if so, one can easily drown in it. And my view, and I think our view at Microsoft, is what's going to make those types of solutions viable and successful is really in how they're architected. And when I say architected, not just from a technical perspective, but from a business perspective, to understand how these two things come together and how they can provide meaningful insight to key stakeholders and who are the right personas. That's really our point of view and how this is going to roll out successfully. It depends on the solution, but it does take a village. It's not the types of resources and the types of teams. You're never going to, I wouldn't expect any one person to have mastery of all of these skills, but should be cognizant or aware enough of know where their limitations are. But yet we have such a network of professionals, a network of of architects and individuals in the company where we should be able to supplement each other and help build a team. So no one project is going to be led by any one enterprise architect, but it's going to be more of a team, and it's going to take more of a collaborative team effort. I'll take that one step further. Is if because there's so much data out there that parents can self-prescribe medications or self-diagnose their children because they're not sleeping well, or they're not eating properly, or they're not walking straight if they're young. So parents have all this information and may have the right to feel that they can diagnose what's wrong with Johnny. So therein lies a unique problem. In that case, I feel that it's within the remit of the industry to sort of self-regulate. I don't know that it's an IT issue at that point. I do understand the need of IT to as a board have adhere to certain standards. And that's, in order to be able to be, example, an enterprise architect, these are the foundational pillars where you have to have some sort of mastery, understanding. Otherwise, you're not really capable of being an enterprise architect. It's like getting a PhD. You have to have a certain level of accreditation. You have to prove that you've done it. So I think in that level, I think there can be, and there probably needs to be, and it's probably over time. I think we're trending towards that. Whether or not that's going to happen anytime soon, I don't know. I also think as we move forward with a lot of cloud services, it's a lot of the engineering, a lot of the architecture is going into the development of those cloud services, but yet how they're implemented and how they're matched with business, therein lies another form of architecture. I think that's really application as well as enterprise architecture working in tandem. As far as, and there needs to be certain standards there that have to be governed to for how users are managed, identity is managed, users are provisioned, decommissioned, how data is secured, how data is integrated with, how it's reported on. Certainly identity and access becomes very important, always has been. I think the industry is moving to a point where as newsworthy as these incidents are, and however much information they're gathering, I trust that we're moving into an area where the industry will sort of course correct and take care of itself. Although I know that practically every organization, every entity, Microsoft included, has been hacked in its public information. The government, last week the United States government was hacked, and I forget how many federal employees, PII information was captured, and I believe it was traced back to China. And so there's a lot of these things, and you can take the Home Depot example, you can expand on that and say, well, how many federal employees' data is now in the hands of the Chinese government? It's out there. And a lot of those issues are probably, you could trace them down to, faulty processes. I don't know if I want to say it's faulty architecture, but it's an organization that implemented a faulty solution properly. It was never, it wasn't tested properly. It didn't go through proper security rigor before being put into production. Maybe the system wasn't managed properly. It wasn't patched properly. It didn't have the right support over the life cycle. So eventually vulnerabilities were found. So at the one point, is it the architecture? Because the architects are only going to be able to do best with the requirements, non-functional requirements, and constraints that they're provided. But that's at a point in time. But architecture isn't a finite thing. It's not like an architecture ends and then the solution lives on. The architecture goes on over the course with the solution. So as the solution, any technology solution lives and breathes, and new requirements and new enhancement requests come in, the architecture always has to be there to support it. And with that comes changes, and with that comes documentation, comes testing, comes security and monitoring and check and the like. So it's a continuous thing. And for those who feel that the architecture is just sort of phase one of a multi-phased initiative, I think are viewing it improperly and they're not thinking through it through the right lens. Well, I'd say it's you started off the conversation today of using an expression that I've heard candidly a few times already, is that enterprise architecture is dead. Long live enterprise architecture. The thing I'm going to say is, and as you noted, as we move from on-prem to the cloud or other, we'll all have jobs. And I think architecture is still fundamentally the core pillar for bridging technology with business, and helping do so in a way that's maintains proper governance, is compliant, and helps a business deliberately and with purpose transform. It's not loosey-goosey. It's not one arm over here doing something that the left hand isn't necessarily monitoring. They're all moving forward in unison, and it's purposeful and it's deliberate, and it's an incredibly difficult role to be successful in. But it's so much fun if you can do it well. I believe strongly that there's nothing more important or fun to be doing than fulfilling the architect role in the world that we live in today. There's nothing that's changing more quickly. There's nothing that, if you're a technologist and you love to see and you love business, there's the world we're in today it's a fascinating period of time, and I wouldn't want to be doing anything else right now.